So my job as the leader of the organization is to help transition people from AI phobic, if you will, into hopefully understanding that it is a tool that they can leverage. And so it's been really cool because I've been open about how I use AI. And so I've been able to usher, a couple handfuls of people from that AI phobic to now people that have had their lives made easier by it. And I've got to play a part in that. And eventually, like, that conversation in 2 years will sound silly because everyone will figure it out.
Everybody, yeah.
But if I would have said that a year ago, it would have been controversial, right? So it's just accelerating at a pace that is quite remarkable.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my special guest today is PJ Caposey. PJ is a superintendent at Oregon Community Unit School District 220, and that's in Oregon, Illinois. PJ, I got it.
You nailed it.
Tell us a little bit, PJ, about you. Welcome to the show, first of all. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And tell us a little bit about your background, PJ, and a little bit about Oregon Community Schools demographics.
Absolutely. So I started my career in the inner city of Chicago. I say inner city gingerly because I think there's some pejorative that comes with that. But I moved from inner city to urban, and I think they're two dramatically different environments. And so my entire teaching career was in Chicago. I started my administrative career in Rockford, Illinois, which at the time was the second largest urban system in the state. Was divorced and looking to get kind of back toward home. I'm a suburban kid, and about halfway between where I was at in Rockford and home, an opening came for high school principal in Oregon, Illinois. Had never been there, had driven by the exit a number of times, but there's not even a bathroom at the exit, so I never stopped. And so
Gotcha.
went in for the interview, became a high school principal at 27, and was here for 4 years. And I can share some stories, but there's some really high highs and some really low lows. As a principal at 27, I was full of ambition and drive, and in reflection, probably a bit underskilled. And so there were some bumps in the road, and did well enough, though, that the neighboring district hired me as a superintendent just 4 years later. So I was in our neighboring district of Meridian, which is located in Simmon Valley, for 12 years. And we had a lot of success there, which afforded me a ton of opportunities to develop my career in different ways. So been able to travel the world speaking and consulting, and have written 10 books at this point, and was
Good for you.
our Illinois Superintendent of the Year and runner-up for National Superintendent of the Year. So able to enjoy a ton of success there. But we never moved. And so my kids still went to school in Oregon. My wife taught in Oregon. And so when the opportunity came to come back home, even though it was just 15 minutes away, I took the opportunity to come back to Oregon. The transition in Meridian didn't go the way that we had a beautiful plan on paper, just didn't necessarily work out. So last year, I had the unique opportunity to be superintendent of two completely different school districts.
Wow.
So that was,
oh my goodness.
that was last year, and now we are 3/4 of the way through year 2 in Oregon, and it's been a really, really interesting and really fun ride so far.
So you're not in two now.
No,
just that
this
one
year
year.
I'm
It was just a
I'm a
transition
one district
year.
man again.
There you go. That's
Yes.
good. Congratulations on Superintendent of the Year, though. That's amazing. That's hard work. That's hard work.
It is. It's a profession that I am very fearful of, quite honestly. It's a dying profession. There's not enough people that want to do the work of superintendent. And I think there's a litany of reasons for that. Actually, I have a book coming out on this, and wrote an article on it earlier this year. But in Illinois, we have, I don't know, roughly 10% of the positions that need to be filled by interims each year because we don't have enough people willing to do the job anymore. So it's a really interesting position for, I think, the profession writ large. And I can give you a laundry list of things that could or should change to make it more attractive. But that said, I still think I've got the best job in the world. So I am pretty content with it. But I also am eyes wide open to some of the things that plague the industry in totality.
Yeah, and it is a problem. We know that teachers and educators are on the decline, and that is part of what Lighthouse and Brighter Together are doing is just trying to put a light on some of that. Also to give you guys a voice. We need more of this. We need more people that are willing to talk about the good things and the hard work that's happening in education, and not just taking one crazy teacher's experience that went national, and and applying that to every single district and every single teacher across the United States. It's just not fair, and it's not realistic. And so here we are. And I'm a fighter. I've never been somebody who has backed down. You want to talk to me about something, and we don't agree. We'll have an intelligent conversation about it, and you can try to persuade me, and I will try to persuade you, and we'll probably leave both not agreeing. But there you go. But
Well,
it's not duking it out, right?
the ability and willingness to engage in dialogue, particularly with people with differing perspectives right now, is just dramatically lacking. And I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of reasons that we can point to for that. But the willingness to allow somebody to potentially persuade you and to be open to new ideas or concepts and, quite honestly, new facts, um, is something that we are actually working with kids on, right? Like, and we work with other teachers on, because it's not hard to look on the internet, which is where so many of us live these days, and see that is sorely lacking in the society that we live in now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something that is it's just needed, and it's not just needed in education. And I'm not going to get political. I will try to I try to stay very very far away from that. But education is political no matter what. I mean, you don't get to choose that it's not political by me saying it's not political. I just won't go there. I just am like I have my opinions, and I've talked to so many people, and we all want the same thing, and that's for kids to be educated and feel like they have value. And that's the most important thing, and that's the most important part of what we do as educators. And I don't care if you're a liberal or a conservative or anywhere in between on that spectrum. We all love the kids.
Amen.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about like what's going on in Oregon community schools. I know we talked about your journey, and you've been superintendent, you've been principal. What kinds of initiatives or what kinds of things are you guys doing right now?
So Oregon's an interesting place. It's the county seat. There's a long, storied history, and there's a lot of very proud people in the community. All of that said, there's kind of been a dramatic demographic shift in the community, uh, largely not in terms of racial or ethnic diversification, but in terms of economic diversification. And so there's been a dramatic influx and increase in terms of number of students that are free and reduced or come from disadvantaged situations. And I don't we are still in the process of catching up to that, right? And
Mm,
as a
mhm.
district, and quite honestly, as a community, right? Figuring out what that new normal looks like for us as this community. So I would say that when I arrived here, um, there's really two primary challenges that we had to attack right away. And, like, there's some logistical, very school strategic planning type stuff that we had to do, but, if I'm
Mhm.
talking at the very conceptual level, we have some financial challenges. We are small town rural, and just like I think most districts across the country right now, there's this a surge in funding with everything that happened with COVID, and now that is kind of falling off of a cliff. And so
Mhm.
it's just figuring out exactly how we can provide the services that kids deserve and the community wants, with not necessarily the funding to be able to do so. So there's the financial issue, but the secondary issue, which has been more emergent and more prominent in terms of the efforts that we've taken as a leadership team, is the fact that um, average is just okay. And
Yeah.
there really was no sense of urgency. And we actually just had our leadership team meeting this morning for this week and talked about again that we are the urgency, right? Like, we
Mm.
are the urgency. And so in some ways it's very fortunate, right? There's no top down pressure from the board or from the community of test scores need to be A, B, or C, or athletic performance needs to be any. It's we have to create that, and
Right.
so I would say like as we are or as I inherited even, we are average plus. So we're okay. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be okay.
Yeah.
And I don't
Right.
want our community to be okay with us being okay. And
Mhm.
so we're in this unique challenge of trying to thread the needle of increasing expectations. The way we phrase it all the time is we need to demand excellence. And so we
Nice.
need we
Mhm.
need to demand excellence. Meanwhile, looking at continually reducing the services we provide. And so that's a really tough thing to say, "Hey, we're gonna increase here, decrease there." Um, and so that's the challenge that we have in front of us right now. And um, it's eminently winnable challenge, right? Like we can absolutely do it. It is just it's a very interesting place to be where we are the pressure. Um, and we want to kind of rally people to actually hold us accountable more in the public light and for the ability that we have and in how we're serving kids.
Yeah, and having accountability partners is so important if you have a goal. If you wanna reach that goal, you gotta have somebody that you're accountable to, and yeah, otherwise it's and that's the other thing is, like, I always tell people, it's like, "It's not a goal if it's not written down, you gotta write down your goals. They're all on my board behind
Yep.
me, they are there, and there's all kinds of stuff all over." One of them, my big thing right now, and it wasn't mine, I stole it from a motivational speaker, is stick to the plan. It's like that's like been my goal for my true north right now is like we've got to stick to the plan that we've laid out to make sure that we're meeting those milestones because if we don't, it goes backwards. And as you were saying, it's like good as yeah, we're okay. And I learned that the hard way. It's like, yeah, we grew really fast as a company. We got to 2,200 kids and we were there for 3 years and we started going backwards. And it was like, because we weren't pushing to go forward, we got comfortable. And that is not a good place to be. So I totally can relate to exactly what you're saying. 2,200 was great. We have 3,600 kids already. Our goal is 5,000 kids this year, and we're close. We're going to get it. I think we're going to get there. So it's exciting.
It
But
absolutely
but
is.
you but you got to be moving forward. You can't just sit and go, "Ha, this is beautiful. I just want to be in this place." That's for vacations only.
Yeah, and again, we are very fortunate. Like my leadership team is highly driven, highly motivated. I've got, uh, in some ways, I always feel guilty when I talk about this because I've been in 2 districts now as superintendent for the last 13 years. I have been blessed by just really great boards of education, and so I hear some of my contemporaries and colleagues talk, and I'm like, "Oh, man," like, I do think there's a role that the superintendent plays in leading the board of education as well, but, I have just genuinely good human beings on my board, and so we don't always agree on everything, but they're good people, and so
Right.
we can move forward, so we're positioned very well. If we can get the financial stuff figured out, which is ultimately my job, if we can get
Yeah.
that figured out in the next year or so, like I'm quite confident in where we're gonna end up.
Do you think it's gonna and this is just popping into my head. It isn't anything I've spent a lot of time on, I'll be honest. But do you think that, I mean, I know ESSER money is gone. It's gone. I get that. But it seems like we swing in education. Like there's times where it becomes political and they throw money at education. And that's what they did during the pandemic, right? I mean, they threw money at education and then it's got a expiration date, which we got to that expiration date, and now we're kind of swinging back, and everything's really tight again. And I'm proud to say, even in this environment, Lighthouse Therapy is growing, which is amazing, and I'm grateful for that. But we're different, We love the kids and we love the schools, and that's everything that we do relates back to those kids. And I think that just is part of it. But is there to get back to my question, sorry, I went down that hole. I love what I do, can you tell? But do you think there is going to be, some return of those funds in some other form in the near future?
It's hard to tell. My experience tells me yes, right? Same experiences that
Yeah,
you've had as 2008 was a disaster, slowly got better, got real good during the pandemic, and now it's kind of cycling back. So I assume that it's gonna yo-yo again because that's,
yeah,
I think part of intelligence is pattern recognition, right? So that's the pattern.
right.
Um,
Mhm.
that said, there's certain things that I don't know where we come back, right? Like one of the things we just had our insurance renewal, and we've had negative loss ratio years, 3 years in a row, which means we've done good compared to premium. Our renewal's over 25%. And so,
Wow.
for a district, you know, my size, that's 3% of the budget gone, just gone.
Yeah.
In terms of where the insurance renewal is going. So, like, I don't know where that comes back. I don't see negative renewals in the future, right? So, like, that's
Mhm.
just gonna continue to escalate. Um,
Yeah.
Things that the public don't necessarily see, like the cost of leasing a bus, which obviously need buses to get kids to school, has tripled in less than a decade. And so I don't, even if funding increases, expenses are outpacing that, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say. So,
Yeah,
do I think that we
exactly.
might get additional funding? Sure, because as things get bad, it gets attention. The attention then turns into revenue. The revenue then can get dispersed. But there's certain costs that we have to operate. You need insurance.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
buses. You need so I don't know that it's going to keep up. So it's a scary proposition. Now,
Yeah.
um, so the question then becomes like, what does right sizing look like, right? Are there positions that we have now that are nice to have positions, not need to have, and potentially if we reduce, we save taxpayers money, but we also can maintain performance, and that's essentially what I'm tasked with right now is trying to find the the reductions that all of them will hurt and all of them um, are sad in a way because they involve human beings,
Right.
but how do we create reductions in a way that create the least amount of loss for kids?
Right.
And if we can do that, then I've done my job, but it's not the fun part of the job.
And it's a lonely place to be because you're the one that has to make those decisions. I get that 1000%. It's awful. It is awful. Yeah, because they are people. Every single one of those is a person. And one of the things that I have seen, and I think that it is a little bit of a glimmer, and I haven't really talked that much. We've talked about technology and we've talked about AI on the show before, but what I am seeing and what because we are embracing it, as a tech company, as a company that does teletherapy and talks about technology and finds ways to do things more efficiently is AI. AI in its form as it grows is becoming a time saver when it comes to the amount of time it takes to write notes, the amount of time it takes. Now, there are schools out there I know that are scared to death of AI because they're like, put it on ChatGPT and it's out there for everyone to see. Well, that's true if you do it on ChatGPT, but if you do it through a private server, and it's something actually that Lighthouse is working on, is finding a way to give schools a way to have AI in a way that's HIPAA and FERPA compliant, right? And if we can do that, and we're and it's so crazy how fast it is, but it will allow special education teachers and directors and teachers that have to write all these notes and do all these things and all this documentation to have it done in half of a heartbeat. It's amazing what I've seen and what's coming when it comes to AI. Again, you have to be careful, and you as a superintendent know this. It has to be compliant. And then we recognize that as a company. So we are working on that for not only for us, which is a crazy thing. We started out as something that it was just going to be for Lighthouse, but we have, as we've been developing it, we're like, oh my goodness, this would save schools and teachers and therapists. You can't get enough therapists. Well, half of that is because how much time are they spending writing notes and writing IEPs and all of that stuff. If we can find you a way to half that time, guess what? All of a sudden, your therapist can be more productive because they don't have to work as much on paperwork. And I think it's coming. I really do.
Well, it's already here,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yep.
so there's no putting the genie back in the bottle.
For sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the question becomes, will this be a job saver, a job replicator, a job creator, right? And
I
so
think it can be all of those things,
how
right?
100%. And so that's
Yeah.
the difficult part of where we are at. And so I have been fortunate to be part of large organizations, and I've also been part of lean organizations. And so I can say in some of the places I've been, AI could have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? Because we
Mhm.
would, but then I look at a place like where I'm at now, and we are so thin
Right.
that we're still gonna need some human to operate, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like,
Yeah,
there's,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
and
It
there's
doesn't, and I'm not saying that. Absolutely not. You still have to have humans. Absolutely 1000%. I agree with you.
yeah, and so it's all about scalability, amplification of use, um,
Mhm.
and it is terrifying to certain teachers, and so as a district, we've embraced it, but we also haven't pushed it. It's an interesting, um, kinda layer of self-discovery we've allowed our teachers to go through. Certain departments have taken a really hard stance, other departments have not. Sometimes it's individual by individual on what it looks like. So it's a very interesting and evolving place.
Occupational therapy shouldn't be one more thing on your plate. It should be a solution. Lighthouse Therapy offers school based occupational therapy services that actually work for you and your staff. Our OTs have an average of 16 years of experience in schools, and they support everything from handwriting to fine motor to sensory integration. And you can choose from 3 different service models, whether it be virtual, hybrid, or in person. It's OT that fits your workflow without the chaos. Visit lighthouse-therapy.com/brighter together to learn more.
I'm very
Do you
thankful
rem-
for my perspective on it because as I came into the profession, I kinda came in with Google.
Yeah,
Um,
I was
it
just gonna say that. Do you remember when the internet
Yeah,
started? That was me too.
and so
94. Yeah.
with, um Google coming in and the value of rote memorization and knowledge of facts having much less esteem in the classroom because now we could Google that and then we need to actually have kids think and create content. Uh,
Mhm.
I was part of that and I knew how terrifying it was for teachers. So I think it's allowed me to
Mhm.
have a different level of empathy for teachers than I might have had
Yeah.
otherwise, because I've seen that go through this, but I also have a different, like a very firm sense of inevitability. So
Mhm.
it's not a choice of whether we do AI, it's a choice of how well we do AI.
Right, exactly.
That is the question. And so, like I said, we're not putting the genie back in the bottle. And so my job as the leader of the organization is to help transition people from AI phobic, if you will, into hopefully understanding that it is a tool that they can leverage. And so it's been really cool because I've been open about how I use AI. And so I've been able to usher, a couple handfuls of people from that AI phobic to now people that have had their lives made easier by it.
Mhm.
And I've got to play a part in that. And eventually, like that conversation in 2 years will sound silly because everyone will have
Yeah, of
figured it out.
course. Everybody, yeah,
But if I
yeah,
would've said that a
exactly.
year ago, it would've been controversial, right? So it's just
Right.
accelerating at a pace that is, um, quite remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah. It does very much remind me of when the internet came out. It just was, what is this thing? The World Wide Web, and we don't even call it that anymore, and just how incredibly quickly it became such an ingrained part of our day-to-day lives. And I see that with AI. Even myself, I can identify with what you were talking about, being phobic of it, because when I first looked at it and started, I was like, well, and one of the things they laugh about us, those of us over 50 who are using AI as a Google tool. Well, it's ChatGPT will act like Google if you ask it that way, but when you give it a prompt in a way that helps your workflow, it's a totally different game. And so, I'm just like, because I was the same way. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. And now it's like, I'm excited about it. I really, and again, I probably a year ago would not have said that. I'm like, I don't know. And here I am cheering it on because, but again, go into it with your eyes open for sure.
100%. And guardrails,
Yeah.
like anything else, like, and I feel
Uh-huh.
like that's, as a leader, that's my job, right? Is to make sure that I
Yeah.
put the appropriate guardrails up, for myself, for my teachers, for my students, for my own kids. This is where it's appropriate, this is inappropriate, and how to leverage it. So it's interesting. Um, I teach for a handful of universities, and so I just gave an assignment, and I was like, "This is an AI friendly assignment. Like, you should use it in this format." And when I opened the door to it, like a lot of the assignments I got, I had to kick back and be like, "No." like that, like this, we're in week 7. I know you're writing. This is not your writing. I said, you could use it for X, not for Y.
Ah,
And
gotcha.
ever, and it's grad school. So everyone's like, oh, I get it. I get it. I get it. But even with the professionals, right? Like, so I just laugh because those are teachers in the classroom right now that I'm teaching. And I can just imagine what it would have been like if Johnny in 7th grade would have turned in what they turned in.
Right.
So it's interesting too, our graying lines of potential. What's good for me is good for me, but what's good for you is different.
Yeah. One of the things I think too that we're going to see is more teaching of executive function, because you touched on the fact that we could Google the facts. You don't have to have all the facts in your head. And I know we're teaching this already, but really honing in on getting these kids to think for themselves, to plan for themselves, to make sure that where they're going, they put 3 steps ahead and thought through it. And I've seen that kind of emerging more and more as we've been talking about high school kids and career technical education, and getting them a plan after high school. Where are they going after high school? And getting them to understand that, hey, you're going to have to pay your bills. You're going to have to make sure that the electricity stays on, and that you have food on your table, and that your rent's paid, and that your car payment is scheduled properly, and all of those things. And I love the fact that schools are recognizing that these are really like fundamental tools and skills that kids, because it's shifting.
So I hope, and we have programmed classes along those lines. So we are putting our money and resources behind that. But I also just think it's important to kind of call out, like, this is a new phenomenon
Mhm.
in terms of that being the school's job.
Yeah. No, I'm not arguing that with you. Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
that
Yep.
is, um, so like when we had the conversation about finance before,
Mhm.
schools have become the social service,
Yes, they have.
um, and particularly in small town rural. And again, having
Mhm.
the experience of working inner city, urban, small town rural, we are it, right? We are the lifeline to social services. We are the lifeline to DCFS. We're the lifeline to the police, and oftentimes they tell us when we call, "You guys are better equipped to handle this than we are." And, not only are we that, now we're supposed to be the ones teach them how to change a tire. We're supposed to help them change their oil. We're supposed to help them, balance their bank accounts and understand compound interest and all of those things. And I'm not necessarily shying away from that. I am just saying it's very interesting when we're supposed to do all of those things, but then God forbid a test score that measures none of that comes out.
None of it. Yes, I
None of it comes
1000%.
out,
Yeah.
and then people wanna cherry pick those things, or the opposite, test scores are great, "Yeah, but my kid left and didn't know how to do his taxes." Correct, because we don't teach kids how to do their taxes. That's not our
Right?
job, but now it's
Yeah.
become our job too. So it's just
Yeah.
very, very interesting, because people have gotten very opinionated/jaded on the role of public schools in America. I've
Mhm.
dedicated my life to public schools in America, so I feel very, very passionately about this. And
Absolutely, as you should. Right.
and so
Yeah.
when people, talk about things like indoctrination or dereliction of duty and all of those things, I just think it's very interesting to remind them of, because most of the people that are saying those things are my age, right? So we're in the
Mhm.
40 to 55 range. What you're asking of schools is fundamentally different and in every way more than before. Um,
Absolutely.
and so it's just a very interesting concept to go around. So yes, I do think that we need to help in all of those ways that you said, but also that used to not be what we were designed to help
Right.
with.
No. And it is true, and it is something that, and I've said it before too. It's like, when you talk about a child that comes from an environment, and you've seen them all, I know, they're not ready to learn unless they are fed, right? Unless they feel safe,
Yeah.
unless they have some place to go to lay their head, and somebody that they can trust. All of those
The
those,
Maslow before Bloom.
yeah, yeah, there you go. And somehow along the way, all of those things, because we as passionate educators want the kids to be able to learn, have taken those things on to get them to there. And I think that was the start of it. And now it's gone beyond that. And I'm really hopeful that as AI comes in, it will help us in a way that at least makes it a little bit easier. It's not going to, not AI is not going to fix everything. I get that. But I really am hopeful that, because whether we want it or not, PJ, society is still pushing it on education. I don't think education took it on, but it somehow became our responsibility because the kids spend the majority of their day outside of home in our classrooms. Right?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
this was nothing made this clearer than during COVID. The first 3 months of COVID, people are sending love letters to teachers saying, "Oh my gosh, I have no idea how you did this. Like, it is so hard." Like, that teachers are heroes. Like, that was the first 3 months of COVID, and then depending on what state you were in, you went back to school the next year, you didn't go back to the school the next year, and then, God forbid, you didn't go back to school, then it was, "Teachers are lazy. Why aren't they doing their jobs? We need the daycare." Like, so it's just been this really interesting perspective as to, yeah, we get that it's super hard. We don't care that it's super hard.
Yeah.
Don't raise my taxes and do better. And so I tell my buddies a lot, like I happen to be, I've, you're in a million different group chats, but I'm in one group chat where there's a lot of very successful people my age. And most of the time we're talking about football or fantasy baseball or just normal stuff, but every once in a while we'll have a real conversation about life. And it's always interesting to explain to my people that are not in education that the better I run my organization as the de facto CEO of this organization, unlike anywhere else in the world, it doesn't create more revenue. And so the better I do, in fact, in many ways, you get less revenue with success. You're less eligible for grants. You're less eligible for different supports. That the better I do, the less money I get. And so it's a counterintuitive principle. Is so it's very interesting as people, because I don't think Joe Public understands that either.
Right. Right. Yeah. They don't. They don't. And that's why it's so important that we talk about it, because it does. And you've written books, and I know that you get this. And this conversation went down a road I didn't know we were going to go down. Really didn't, PJ, but I love it. I love the fact that we've had this conversation because it does matter and it does make a difference. And we need people to know that fundamentally how we fund schools is majorly broken, and how we measure schools and how schools are doing is completely insane. And we can't be the be all end all of everything for everybody, even though we try.
Yeah. So it's one of the and this does get political, and I'm not trying to, but
No, it's okay.
um a lot of my friends are very left leaning, so I'll say it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty common in education. It just is what it
Mm-hmm.
is. And some of them live in incredibly affluent areas because they want their kids to have the best access to things. And so when we talk about does all mean all, everyone says yes. And then I said, well, then should some of your tax dollars from your school that spends $40,000 a year to educate kids flow through to mine that spends 18,000? Like, well, no, right? So it's great in concept. It's an amazing
Right.
theory,
Right.
but it's also, we're gonna take care of ours first, and then whatever's left is whatever's left, and that should be somebody else's problem to fix. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here being like, "Okay, great, like, you're in a district that has 5% of underprivileged kids and are spending twice as much to educate them, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
over half underprivileged kids, and I have 50% to educate them with, but then we're measured on the same scale, right?" Um, and somehow, like, we're supposed to be okay with that, right? And fundamentally, I don't think anyone would say that somebody's zip code should determine the quality of their education.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
But it does.
but it does, right?
But
And
it
we all
does.
know it.
Yes,
It's
it
like
does.
the
Yes,
worst
it
kept
does.
secret ever, and I'm
Yeah.
working my tail off, and I am imploring my leadership team, and they're working with the teachers and the staff to make sure that it doesn't matter, right? That
Mhm.
that we are the one that people will look at and be like, "Well, this zip code should be here," and it's actually all the way up here because they demanded excellence and we had outstanding outcomes. And that's ultimately what I see as my work, right? That's what I'm dedicating my life to. But we also have to be very like, let's be honest with each other, right? Like, if we're going to say all means all, then we shouldn't be okay with the way that we're set up right now as a society to support schools because it just doesn't.
It doesn't. It doesn't, and it doesn't I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. I love that we can talk about I wish I had an answer. I wish I could wave my magic wand and fix it all, but, you know. But the beautiful thing about education and about what I do is no matter no matter the socioeconomic status of the kids at the school, people like you that come onto this show are fighting that fight every single day and working so hard for those kids. And that to me is the part that I get to bring to light is that there are so many people in this country that are fighting so hard for our kids and wanting our kids to be successful in a society that it's not fair, it's not equitable, it's not any of those things, and yet we continue to do it because there's a lot of people out there that look at that and they'll go, "Ah, I'm not doing that." And we talked about that too, how it's that it's going, the amount of educators we have is going down because of it. So, I don't know. It's I wish I could fix it. I really do, PJ, I really do. So,
Yeah, and I'll say the thing that actually the hardest decision that I make on a consistent basis is not is tied to this, but not necessarily directly. And it's also something that I just think public needs to consider as they think about schools. I'm put in the position because critical high impact decisions funnel up, right? And so I get to make some of those that I have to make decisions that consistently are what's best for all, even though I know it's going to hurt some or one. And so when you think about education, you think about, well, what are you doing for Johnny? And sometimes the best thing I can do for Johnny is not the decision I'm going to make because it's going to benefit 420 other kids if I make a tough decision for Johnny. Um, and that's an underside of education that I just don't think people process through enough is that um, I can't, and I'm pretty honest when I look at some parents across the table and we're having some difficult conversations about decisions we're making with them or for them, that I don't know this is the best decision for your kid, but I do know it's the best or do believe that it's the best decision for my organization. And I have to weigh both. And that is the hardest part is when I have to walk into a decision that might not be best for an individual kid, but that is best for the other 400 kids or my 1,500 kids in the district. That's the worst part of the job.
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's we've been talking for 35 minutes, which is amazing, but we need to wrap it up. So where do people go, PJ, if they want to? Because we've had a great conversation, and I'm sure there's somebody who's going to have a question for you. So, tell us how to find your school, and I'm sure there's probably a link somewhere on that website to get to you as a superintendent.
Yeah, I mean, so the easiest way to find me is if my name's been on the screen the whole time. It's just www.pjcaposey.com, and that'll take you to everything me to get a
Okay.
hold of me. And then the district is ocusd.net if you want to go that way, but you can link through my website directly there as well.
And Caposey, for those of you that are listening, is Caposey, just so that people can find it quickly. Thank you so much for the conversation and your passion. And are the books you mentioned, and I wanted to give you a second to plug your books. Will they find the books that you have published and the ones that are coming out? Are they on PJ Caposey
Yeah,
website?
they'll be linked there, but in Amazon search will pull them all too. So if you're
Okay.
interested, they're all on Amazon as well.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate the time.